Post October 7th, just as we saw an increase in anti Semitism across the world, we also saw this happen in high schools across the US. We saw more incidents of vandalism, of bullying, and obviously, this doesn't even include what teens were facing on social media as well. We hear people, bringing together interfaith panels to talk about, issues that may be facing multiple communities. I think like that personal connection and storytelling is a great way to form relationships with others at school.
Joining us now is Kate Chavez. Kate, so great to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Michael. Happy to be here.
And tell us, what is the current situation regarding anti-Semitism, and what is the Jewish experience in high schools across the country?
Great first question. I will say that, post October 7th, just as we saw an increase in anti Semitism across the world, we also saw this happen in high schools across the US. We saw more incidents of vandalism, of bullying, and obviously, this doesn't even include what teens were facing on social media as well. So we did see this uptick in isolation that Jewish students felt due to their connection to Israel, due to their religion or their identity. And I think that these Jewish students were looking for, a safe space in their space of education. And unfortunately, what we saw was, a lack of adequate response from school administrators, from the adults in the room. And so obviously this is not the case at every single high school, but there was kind of a misunderstanding from school administration about how to effectively deal with anti-Semitism in the wake of, the ongoing Israel-Hamas war.
And let's talk about that. So what are the key elements of effectively addressing anti-Semitism in high schools?
Great question. Okay. There are numerous ways that we can ensure Jewish students are protected in high schools. I think that number one, education and awareness is critical. So to give Jewish students the space to educate their peers about who the Jewish people are is great, but also allowing teachers the time to talk about anti-Semitism as we want all forms of hate to be educated on in schools. I think that that's so important. The education awareness piece is critical. We also want to see clear policies and accountability from schools. So whether this is, clearly defined anti-discrimination policies, hopefully those include anti-Semitism specifically. We also want to see like clear reporting mechanisms. So if something does happen, is there a policy or a protocol in place for someone to report it? And then obviously, what are the consequences for violating whatever the policy is? So you kind of have like that approach that looks at both the students and the administrators to, jointly fight anti-Semitism. And I think, the last piece is partnering with trusted organizations, right? Allowing the Jewish communal organizations to define anti-Semitism for us, for our people, and then educating on that to students. So obviously, Stand With Us High School has numerous avenues for teens to come to us to, allow us to help them educate their peers about the Jewish community, Israel, anti-Semitism. And so, encouraging administrators to turn to our communal organizations, I think, is really, really important as well.
And I know that via the Stand With Us Leventhal internship and in other ways, you help students themselves collaborate with school administrators, for instance, to promote Jewish cultural events and address issues of anti-Semitism. So how do you do that within the school environment?
Yeah, great question. So I have to obviously give a shout out to the Leventhal interns because these students are superstars in their high schools. And so oftentimes, these student leaders are maybe presidents of the Jewish Student Union, or they're presidents of the Israel Club, or they're just involved in their school community. And so those students, I think, should feel incredibly empowered to build alliances with other groups on campus, right? Like natural, authentic partnerships. Being an ally to others is just as important as, us welcoming in allies to our community. So I think building alliances with other clubs, with administration, all of this is critical to effectively fight anti-Semitism holistically. I think for students in particular, offering solutions not just problems to their administration it's a smart move. Coming in to, a school principal or a teacher and saying like, X is happening, but I think X can fix it is a great way to approach this conversation. And I think it just fosters more collaboration, which is awesome. And then I think something for, parents and students, but for parents to keep in mind is that we can and should be leveraging existing policies that already exist in, a school handbook or school bylaws. And so I think being familiar with the policies that are in place and then like making the case for Jewish inclusion through those policies is also a very good step to take in the right direction.
And of course, Kate, peer-to-peer education is so important. So tell us how you lead young people to foster meaningful discussions about Jewish history, Jewish culture with their peers.
Sure. Well, definitely teens in high schools like know their peers best, right? We would never want to go in and say, this school should run this program. We want to hear from students. We want to hear, what language works with your friends, what language works with your community. And so I think allowing students to kind of take the lead on bringing education to their schools is super important for just us as, adults in this space. But I think that students kind of run with this and use their creativity to create relationships with others on campus. Like we've seen incredible programs having to do with, like cooking traditional Jewish food at school to help others learn about our culture. We hear people, bringing together interfaith panels to talk about, issues that may be facing multiple communities. I think like that personal connection and storytelling is a great way to form relationships with others at school for sure.
And I know that your department has been at the forefront of implementing celebrations for commemorative months like Jewish American Heritage Month and Mizrahi Heritage Month in schools. Tell us more.
Sure. Okay, so I'm very proud to announce that in this past school year, our Jewish American Heritage Month programming reached 30,000 high school students across the United States, which is very exciting because I think that number one, it allows Jewish students to feel pride in their community. And also it allows other students to kind of take a peek and learn about the Jewish community in a way that maybe isn't how they're hearing about us right now. But celebrating, Jewish contributions to the US, celebrating the culture of Mizrahi Jews, all of these are incredible opportunities for people to learn, to create, cross-cultural bridges. All of this is critical for forming a school environment where Jewish students feel proud and have relationships with other students. So, if you're listening and you want to bring in a tabling kit or you want to bring in resources for a bulletin board or a library display, highly recommend it because I think it's a great way to educate others about who the Jewish people are.
And of course, if young people do face anti-Semitism on their high school, what can they do?
Great question. So obviously, turning to community organizations like Stand With Us is, I think, a great first place to start. We have years of experience responding to cases across the US. And so, us being able to bring that expertise, I think, is important. Obviously, we work hand in hand with students and families to ensure that every step of the way, they're part of the decision-making process because at the end of the day, this is their school, right? We want to make sure that these students feel comfortable in this environment. But we have numerous ways to respond to anti-Semitism. Sometimes it's, student-facing education, right? There is an insensitive comment made or, unfortunately, swastika is being drawn on school buildings. And so maybe that means we bring in a speaker for like an all school assembly. But there's also teacher facing work that we can do, right? Training educators how to effectively push back against anti-Semitism, but also just how to identify it. Our K-12 Fairness Center also obviously can help in that area. And then I think finally, should something truly egregious happen or should there be a hostile environment in a school, our legal team is also there to help. So I think working hand in hand with families and students is something that we've excelled at over the years. And so obviously, should anything happen, you can always turn to Stand With Us to support you.
Yeah, do reach out if you need to. And of course, they can do that from the homepage of standwithus.com. they can report an incident, and we will, of course, follow up. Incredible work, both pushing back against anti-Semitism and pushing forward with a positive, embracing agenda of Jewish identity. Stand With Us, Executive Director of High School Affairs. Thank you very much, Kate Chavez, and please thank your wonderful team for all that they're doing.
Thank you, Michael.